Hello and welcome back. Today I'll be discussing Tulsa and Charlotte. So, in the Tulsa case, Tulsa cop Betty Shelby shot an unarmed black man, and in Charlotte, the video is a bit confusing, but it results in another black man being shot. That one's still, under investigation. And as a result, riots, protest marches, and even some looting have occurred this week. In fact, it's been so bad that Charlotte specifically has been declared a state of emergency, and it's so bad that the mayor of Charlotte has discouraged both Trump and Clinton from making visitations to Charlotte at this time. So, someone famous once said, "There's a time and place for everything, but not now." Though I don't really remember who it was. But let's take a look at what's happening and some of the mistakes being made. My father, just a couple of days ago, was talking with me while he was watching Fox News, covering specifically the looting in Charlotte. And he was mentioning how some of these behaviors reflect poorly on black communities, reinforce negative stereotypes about black people, and he even said that many of these people were just using the riots and the protests as an excuse to do some looting. Now, as reluctant as I am to agree with him, I do only to an extent. Let's talk about let's talk about these behaviors and their acceptability. So, are protests acceptable? Of course, certainly. You know what? I mean, there seems to be some egregious systematic problem with police officers overreacting to encounters with black men, whether especially if those men are unarmed, are the most egregious cases. With this issue being brought to light, being more exposed by technological integration in society, I don't really doubt that more of these incredibly damning videos will be in the news each week. In 2015 alone, there was over 1,100 black men who were shot by and killed by police, which comes out to about 3 a day. When you spread this out over a country of 350, almost 400 million people, it doesn't seem like an unreasonable amount. But with these videos becoming more and more common, I mean, I don't think that it would be unreasonable to start seeing 2 or 3, maybe even 4 of these instances per week. And so, of course, there must be some problem, and so protests are an acceptable form of speech that can hopefully help lawmakers and politicians find some sort of solution, increase accountability, something like that. Riots. Are riots acceptable in this scenario? Personally, I'd say not yet. While I'd say that this problem is still a problem, it is a problem that's working towards solutions. So, police departments are increasingly holding their officers more accountable, as well as the government, such as in the Tulsa case, where the officer, Betty Shelby, was charged for first-degree manslaughter for the shooting. Additionally, funds have been allocated by the government, signed in by Obama, to equip officers in police departments across the country with body cameras to help reduce hearsay in these types of cases and to be able to get a better idea what is going on in a particular situation just in general. It will help officers be more accountable. It'll help citizens be more accountable, as those are admissible as police evidence in cases like if a cop gets shot or something like that, it'll be on film. And this kind of accountability is great and is a great first step. Of course, part of the problem is implementation time and costs and training costs. So it'll probably be a little while before these incidents are reduced after body cams are implemented. Though officers, because they're becoming subject to more scrutiny, will, once they realize this and that they could very easily end up on national news for an action that they take, probably are going to be more willing to adhere to de-escalation training and whatever other measures that we come up with to reduce these incidents. Now, looting. Is looting an acceptable practice in this kind of situation? Absolutely fucking not. Looting is stealing. It's theft. And potentially destruction of property, if you break windows or things like that. And there are very few instances where looting is acceptable. Those instances, basically, only when there is some sort of systemic collapse, whether that's due to economic, military, environmental, or some sort of other factor. And looting should just be a tool used to ensure survival in these kind of situations, taking things like food, water, survivalist supplies, and other necessities. So let's break it down. When is it okay to loot? Zombie apocalypse? Yes. Military coup? Probably. Nuclear war? Definitely. Cat 5 hurricane that threatens to wipe out New Orleans? Again? Yes. On a day like any other? No. Protesting against police brutality? No. Because God told you to? No. I mean, do you see the pattern here? It's really about rule of law. And while the law can be unfair in many societies, we actually live in a pretty legally egalitarian society. If you were to say, think of a law which affects only a single race, class, or gender, you would be hard pressed to find one. Now, do they exist? Yes. Are those inherently racist, sexist, / whatever? If they're, targeting a single person group based on a characteristic is pretty tribalist. But we don't have too many instances of that. And we're constantly working to try to make it so that everyone can have equal opportunity and have access to fairness under the law. Now, the implementation of these laws and the way that different cultures treat these groups of people may not represent the equality that one would expect. Such as in sentencing, laws have minimum and maximum sentencing. Now, typically, in crimes where the crime may be less egregious or perhaps more justified, you may expect to see a lower sentencing. In particularly brutal cases, you will probably see closer to maximum sentencing, which can become problematic when you have judges who base their sentencing on these characteristics. And that is problematic. It's a problem that we need to work on, but it is definitely a problem. And that really needs to be, that's mostly the result of cultural biases and in-group bias. And these need to be fought culturally, not physically or via looting. And police officers are supposed to be here to protect the people. I mean, if you looking at other countries, there are so many fewer instances of deaths by police brutality in most European countries, even as a percentage of the population. And this is, and I mean, I part of it is probably because of gun restrictions. Police officers are less likely to shoot someone if it's very unlikely they're going to have a gun. But with how easy it is to get a gun in the United States, it's pretty safe to assume that almost any person that you would be arresting as a criminal could very well be easily armed and heavily armed, in fact. Such as in the case today in San Antonio, where there was a deadly shootout on the south side of San Antonio, and the suspect was shot. Now, was this person black or Hispanic? I don't know. I mean, it would probably be safe to assume that they're Hispanic in San Antonio, considering that more than half the population is Hispanic. But there's always problems. There's always going to be problems. People are going to commit crimes. People are going to have weapons, even if they're illegal. There's always going to be death. But with this kind of systematic, like, the number of instances in this is just too high. And really what I want to focus on is cutting down the number of instances where this occurs. So then we don't have to have protests and riots. Ideally, anyone who gets shot by police, I would want to have already shot at police. So, I mean, of course, that would be in an ideal situation. Consider me an idealist. But that's what I would want. And a big part of this is rule of law, but that's an issue that I can get into another time. But for now, /rant. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. Click on one of my other videos to go see them. There should be links on the left-hand side. If there is not, there probably will be soon. And stay tuned for when I do more videos ranting about the same things that I've been ranting about, because the same things still haven't changed. Anyways, adios.